Okay, we'll talk about today what we call it a defense mechanism. Defense mechanism. Okay. What is defense? Defense, the word is defensive or to protect, is it or not? Protect against whom? That is what comes defenses. Though it is that in what you call in American language, they call defense SE, they call it, and in British language, English language, they call CE. Both of them are correct around there, but mostly in psychology they use the word SE, that they call defense mechanism. Okay, what is defense mechanism? Is an unconscious psychological regions responses that protect people from feeling anxiety, threats to self-esteem, and things that they don't want to think about or deal with. Now, this anxiety comes from what? You recollect, we have got different needs. We did talk about it earlier, isn't it? Now, and need cannot be met, all needs cannot be met because, why? Because there is a press. There is a press. There is a press. Okay. Now, if there is a press around there, so there is some impediment becomes in the path of my achieving my need. And need is the basic motivator. Need is a basic motivator. Now, need comes from where? Sigmund Freud has said our personality is made of three. They call it three structures. He called id, ego, and superego. Id, ego, and superego. Okay. So as far as the defense mechanism is concerned, was given by him, Sigmund Freud. In his psychoanalytic theory, he says that these mechanisms protect the conscious mind, what we are aware of, from contradictions between animalistic id and idealistic superego. He said our personality made of three structures. Id. Id is animalistic in approach. I want it. Bhook lagi hai. I want food. From whom, where? I am not told interested. I want my food. I want something. I must get it at all cost. That is like a child, like a child. But as we live in the society, we start developing what we call moral values. And we say this is right and this is not so right. Not so right. So you become slowly and slowly become super ego. It becomes something like godliness. That's an ideal situation. And it is supposed to be animalistic approach. I want it. I'm not bothered who I am. Suppose there is a cake in your house and you see a cake. You are not bothered with a brother, sister, or anyone there. You eat the cake itself. That's simple. You are not bothered with what is there. So that is animalistic approach. But there is a ego is not the ego of English. Psychological ego is supposed to be practical approach. What is possible? What is possible? Okay. So how does it occur? As he says, Sigmund Freud, he says, Sigmund Freud, his modern personality, ego is the aspect of personality that deals with the reality. What is possible? What is possible? Okay. While doing this, the ego also has to cope with the conflicting demands of the id and the superego. What id? Id is, read this portion, read this.
The part of the personality that seeks to fulfill all wants, needs, and impulses. The id is the most basic, primal part of our personalities and does not consider things such as social appropriateness, morality, or even the reality of fulfilling our wants and needs.
So whatever you want to be satisfied at any cost, that is what is the id. And what is superego? As we develop go in society, we start thinking what is right. So it becomes, in a simple word, if we can put our left shoulder as id, animalistic approach, and right shoulder as we put across as a godly approach, that is superego. And if I put my head as the ego, which is supposed to be the practical approach. So what is happening on that? If it dominates, then I become irrelevant to society. I become a bad person. And if superego dominates, I become a godly person. Baba ban gaya. But that is neither Satan रह सकता है, nor भगवान रह सकता है. We are इंसान है. As a result, we have to have a practical what is possible. What is possible? Okay. So since all needs cannot be met because there is a press, and press, we talked about the two types of press, what are called alpha press and beta press. Alpha press is what is physically preventing me from getting my need. Second is what others feel about it. So both these put together, like alpha press, and beta press, what is my perception? That becomes a beta press. And we did talk about different types of press last time. Okay. So now the problem to deal, so because there's a conflict between id and superego, someone has to act as umpire. So we can say ego acts as umpire. Since there's a conflict between these two, there will be certain amount of anxiety. To deal with this anxiety, Freud said that we employ what we call defense mechanism. This is called ego defense mechanism. Why ego defense? Because ego is the mediator. Is the mediator between the two. So what happens when the ego cannot deal with the demands of desires or constrain the reality? Now suppose it wants to have food right now. Food is not available. So practically it is not possible. What happens? Then that is anxiety sets into. According to Freud, anxiety is an unpleasant inner state that people seek to avoid. Anxiety acts as signal to ego that things are not going the way that it should. And as a result, ego employs some sort of defense mechanism to help getting out of the feeling of anxiety. As per him, there are three types of anxiety. What are those? They're called moral anxiety. Called moral anxiety. What is the moral anxiety?
Moral anxiety, a fear of violating our own moral principles. You have morals which you have had from the past, like doing something without cheating. But your friends are cheating, so you become anxious, thinking, should I cheat too?
Now, suppose you are son of her there and one of your friends, both of you appear in the examination. You are very good student, very concentrated. You would like to know, I won't like to do anything wrong. But your person sitting next to you who is not at all good, sees cheating around there. What will, won't you get a feeling, yeah, why should I also cheat? Do you get the feeling or not? So that is called moral anxiety. Now, but your conscientiousness is preventing you from doing that. Correct? So there is anxiety. How do I reduce my anxiety? I know I will not get marks. I will not get my admission because see, cheating on this, he will get a better marks and I will not get my admission. Next is neurotic. Read the next one.
The unconscious worry that we will lose control of the its urges, resulting in punishment for inappropriate behavior. If we are being harassed by a bully or aggressive id impulse might be a response by killing this bully. Other may be panicking or intense anxiety when grocery shopping or at a social gathering.
So what is a neurotic? Pagalpanthi. Neurotic is what we talk about, isn't it? The unconscious worry that we will lose control of its urges. What are its urges? I want, my needs are nothing basic needs. And needs are motivator. If there was no need, I wouldn't have done it. So now, if someone is bullying, if you want to join a college, someone is aggressive to you. What is that? You may not respond to him because you are feeble, you are fragile, you won't like to have a fight because you have got to something, family obligations to be met. But don't you feel that, hey, if I have got a, I'll kill that chap because he is trying to bullshit me, is it or not? So that's a neurotic way. You feel like doing something which is out of place. Other may be panicking. We get panicky. Your exam is a comeback. I'm not prepared. I start panicking. No, it's time for me to go appear in examination and I don't find my bus. Probably I have lost my key of my scooter. What I do? Don't I panic? So this is called neurotic anxiety. It's called neurotic anxiety. And thirdly, what is reality anxiety? What is the reality anxiety? The reality anxiety?
Fear of real world events. The cause of this anxiety is usually easily identified. For example, a person might fear a dog bite when they are near a menacing dog. The most common way of reducing this anxiety is to avoid the threat.
This reality anxiety, what really exists? You find you're walking alone in the night and someone is coming behind it. You are scared. Is he up to something wrong? Aren't you scared? Don't you get scared? That is the real anxiety. Similarly, some ferocious dog is in front of you. What do you do? Don't you feel no? It might bite me. So as per Freud, there are three types of anxiety. What we talked about it, they call it first is moral anxiety, neurotic anxiety, and reality anxiety. Now, if the anxiety is there, as I have talked about it, that like an electron which has gone from lower to the higher state, it would like to come back to reduce its anxiety, isn't it? So it comes back. So we would like to also come and reduce my anxiety. So the mechanism that we use to reduce our anxiety is called defense mechanism. Okay. It was his daughter, Anna Freud, who gave 10 anxieties. 10 times, that the first time in 2000, 2030 आसपास, she gave that the 10 anxieties, she gave it on there. Presently, there are more. What are those? This is the first one, displacement.
Okay.
What is displacement? Shortest distance in our technology, in our science, shortest distance, the 2 points that could displacement, isn't it? It means you are moving from A to B. So when you talk about displacement, you are trying to displace your anxiety to someone else. You're trying to someone else. That is displacement. That is displacement. Now, taking feeling out on others. Since I am angry, I shout at someone else. I shout at someone else. You're in office. Your boss has behaving nastily with you. You cannot reply him back because you have to serve around there. You come back. Your mother is there. Why? Kya beti? She asks something. Mama, don't talk to me around there. Nonsense. She won't know. She don't know what has happened to you. She is asking you normal as a mother. Similarly, there may be a husband may have come back to a house around there, or a wife may be asking, shut up here, don't talk to me now. For what? She had done nothing. So that is called displacement. That is called displacement. Next is called denial. You deny reality. Deny reality. Denying something which exists. Now, say, for example, at my age and time, someone tells me that I'm suffering from certain disease. What is there, my aim? I'll say, no, he must be wrong. He must be wrong. I must take second opinion. I must take second opinion. Would I tell that or not? Normally, somebody, you have appeared in examination. You appeared in examination. And you were expecting 80% or 90% marks. And you got 60% marks. What is it? No, there's something wrong. Teacher may not have checked my questions. You certainly deny that. But marks is getting 60%, not 80%, which you were expecting. That is called denial. Correct? Next called repression. What is repression? Read the meaning. Repression and suppression. Read it.
Unconsciously keeping unpleasant information from your conscious mind. For example, being abused as a child but not remembering the abuse.
Then look, traumatic situation, this comes to you, to all of us. We have something or other that happens to all of us in some form or the other. And we don't want to remember that. We don't want to remember. You want to forget. Otherwise, they could know PTSD, they call it, post-traumatic disorder comes into play. If I don't do that, then you've got a big problem. So what I do, I always repress it. I always repress. I don't want to remember. And if unconsciously keeping unpresent, unconsciously, I don't remember that. As against to that, no, you might see some child has been abused as a child. If he or she keeps remembering what has happened to the child, his or her life is going to hell, isn't it? So it takes the past as a past gone case, and there's no point remembering the past, it has gone. So I must go ahead. That is called repression. Next is suppression. In suppression, as against it was unconsciously, I was trying to forget it. Correct? In repression, in suppression, I am forcefully trying to be, I don't remember that. You go to the principal, or your boss is telling something. You don't remember. You can't reply him back. You can't reply him back. What do? You are suppressing, is it honest? You are forcefully So consciously keeping unpleasant information from your conscious mind, from your conscious mind. Your boss has told you are stupid. You can't really perform. You're a bad person. You can't even do coding. What's the problem? Are you taking the bad joke and forget, yeah, jo ho gaya, that's the end of it. Being abused as harm. So suppression is being abused, child choosing to push it out of it. Now you're trying to get there. You were unconscious, you have forgotten. Unconscious, you are forgotten. Here you are purposely trying to push it out of your consciousness. Okay. Sublimation is going solid state to the gas state. This is sublimation. Physics में, is it not? Okay. Read
Yes.
sublimation.
Converting an unacceptable impulses into more acceptable outlets.
So
For example, being
correct. Being upset with
upset with
Go
going
ahead.
for a walk in.
So you're trying to avoid something which is acceptable to the society. Rather than fighting with your spouse, one starts walking, going off. Okay, I'm going off. A person who is aggressive, he takes on sports like boxing. Just sports like a boxing. So that's called sublimation. Next called projection. Read projection.
Assigning your own unacceptable feelings or qualities to others. Feeling attracted to someone other than your spouse, then fearing that your spouse is cheating on you.
Not only that, when you're in thematic of TAT test you have given it, you have written a story. Isn't it? You have made heroes. Who the hero is? You are transferring your own feeling and thought onto the hero itself, that who make it. As a result, you are projecting your own personality onto the character that you have shown in the while you are writing the story. Correct? So that is called projection. Next called intellectualization. Intellectualization is using intelligence, isn't it? Intellectualization. Read it.
Intellectualization, thinking about stressful things in a clinical way. For example, losing a close family member and staying busy with making the necessary arrangement instead of feeling sad.
Look at it. Now what happens around the, in our, हम लोग के शास्त्र में क्या पढ़ा हुआ है कि if there is a death, we get 10 to 13 days, we gave it for the Shraddha Kram. Is it or not? Why? With that 13 days, you are busy doing rituals. As a result, the shock that you have got, the anxiety that you would have felt otherwise, there is no time for you to think. As a result, now you are trying to get away from the anxiety that is available. Even suppose, God forbid, there is no death in a family, anyone, you see a lady, now at that, when you are putting the fire, you look at how beautiful she is still. So you are, rather than concentrating on the negative aspect of the system, you are trying to concentrate on the positive aspect of the system. That could intellectualization. Okay. Next one, rationalization.
Justifying an unacceptable feeling or behavior with logic, being denied a loan for your dream house, then saying it's good thing because the house was too big. And
so you got logic for doing wrong thing, not doing thing. Suppose a father slaps his own son or daughter. What is that? If I won't slap him, he will not improve. He will keep on doing the mistake. So you have got a logic for doing. You always apply a logic, intellect. You are trying to. Why did you do that? Why did you do that? So we are trying to apply logic to that. Okay. Next is regression. Read regression.
Reverting to earlier behaviors, hugging a teddy bear when you are stressed, like you did when you were a child.
So when you were hugging a teddy bear, you are grown-up child and still behave like a child. What does it mean? You have gone into your mental age had gone back as a child. Is it or not? Intelligence is called mental age divided by chronological age into 100. If you are 20 girl, 20 years, 21 years girl, then you should behave like a 21 girl. I cannot expect you to behave like a child. At the time you start behaving like a child, so it is called regression. That's called regression. Okay. Next is called reaction formation. Read it.
replacing an unwanted impulse with its opposite, being sad about a recent breakup but acting happy about it.
No, being sad about it, but happy about it, okay. No one wants it. You had a friendship, you've broken the friendship, acha hua yaar, chala gaya, pichha to chuta. You are giving logic, you are always take opposite view, take a reaction to every action, they equal and opposite. Your view is always good 180 out of phase, 180 out of phase. Correct. So now let's same thing, but just let's go to the some of these. Just read through them quickly. Though we have understood the meaning, just displacement.
Having a bad day at work and taking out frustration on family and friends indicate use of the ego defense mechanism of displacement. Displacement involves taking out of frustrations, feelings, and impulses on people or objects that are less threatening. Displaced aggression is a common.
Correct. Go ahead. Go ahead.
It's a common example of this defense mechanism. Rather than express your anger in ways that could lead to negative consequences, like arguing with your boss, you instead of express your anger toward a person or object that poses no threat, such as a spouse, children, or.
This it's a fact, isn't it? Have you understood? No, no. Okay.
Yes.
Read the denial.
Denial. Probably one of the best known defense mechanism is an outright refusal to admit or recognize that something has occurred or is currently occurring. It functions to protect the ego from things with which the person cannot cope and is used too often to describe situations in which people seem unable to face reality or admit an obvious truth. They are in denial. For example, people living with drug or alcohol addiction often deny that they have a problem, while victims of traumatic events may deny that
Anybody who's alcoholic, he says, no, I'm very fine. I'm very fine.
Yes, sir, denial.
Okay. So that's it. So while any temporarily shield you from the anxiety, but it is not a permanent solution, not a permanent solution. Denial also requires a substantial investment, because anytime you deny energy, there you are trying to counter, is it or not? So you are investing a lot of energy. Because of this, defenses are used to help keep these unaccepted feelings from conscious awareness. That's all. Okay. Now next come repression. Just read repression.
Repression acts to keep information out of conscious awareness. However, these memories don't just disappear. They continue to influence our behavior. For example, a person who has repressed memories of abuse suffered as a child may later have difficulty forming relationships.
Because you always against it. You always, some child who has been abused in a child, they would always get away from relationship. They would not like to have relationship. They are cautious about it. Okay, suppression.
Sometimes you might repress information consciously by forcing the unwanted information out of your awareness. This is known as suppression. In most cases, however, this removal of anxiety-provoking memories from awareness is believed to occur unconsciously.
Okay, next, sublimation. Read sublimation.
Okay. Sublimation is defense mechanism that allows us to act our unacceptable impulses by converting these behaviors into a more acceptable form. For example, a person experiencing extreme anger might take up kickboxing as a means of venting frustration.
So you start kicking the air, is it or not?
Yes.
Okay.
Projection is a defense mechanism that involves taking your own unacceptable qualities or feelings and ascribing them to other people. For example, if you have a strong dislike for someone, you might instead believe that they do not like you.
So now, rather than telling you are not liking, say he doesn't like you, he or she doesn't like me. You are always going to that projection. Projection works on a allowing expression of desire or impulse, but in a way that the ego cannot recognize. Okay, intellectualization, read intellectualization.
Intellectualization works to reduce anxiety by thinking about events in a cold, clinical way. This defense mechanism allows us to avoid thinking about the stressful, emotional aspects of situation and instead focus only on the intellectual component. For example, a person who had just been diagnosed with a terminal illness might focus on learning everything about the disease in order to avoid distress and remain distant from the reality of the situation and the
in writing a story, very first story that you were writing, you have seen a girl lying on the road, is it or not? And so what is that? So it is a negative aspect. Now, there you have to use this defense intellectual come out from the negative to the positive, negative to the positive, right? So when you start writing negative story, then there's a problem. Okay. Read rationalization.
Rationalization is a defense mechanism that involves explaining an unacceptable behavior or feeling in a rational or logical manner, avoiding the true reasons for the behavior. For example, a father slapping his son for poor marks might rationalize the situation by saying they slapped so a poor exam score by blaming the instructor rather than admitting their own lack of preparation. Rationalization not only prevents anxiety, but it may also protect self-esteem and self-concept.
Why
When trying to explain
self-esteem? Why self-concept? It's self-esteem because मैंने अच्छा किया. You have got to believe I have done the right thing. I have the right thing, isn't it? Okay. When trying to explain success or failure,
people using this defense mechanism, when trying to explain success or failure, people using this defense mechanism tend to attribute achievement to their own qualities and skills, while failures are blamed on other people or outside
So
forces.
that's a bias. We have already talked. This is called cognitive. This is one of the cognitive bias comes into. You always no success is yours credit and failure is someone else's problem, not my problem. Okay. Regression.
When confronted by stressful events, people sometimes abandon coping strategies and revert to patterns of behavior used earlier in development. Anna Freud called this defense mechanism regression and suggested that people act out behaviors from the stage of psychosexual development.
What is psychosexual development? This Freud had said that when a child is born, from to the child he becomes adult, they go through what called psychosexual development. First is oral stage when he takes mother's feed. Then he comes to when so if he doesn't get mother's feed, that's called problem called fixation. Fixation. Similarly, when he goes to earlier next stage on there, he the बच्चे को बोलता है potty हो जाता है. He can be stingy. He will not die. So there's a develop his personality gets changed. This is what the Freud has said. Okay. आगे पढ़ो.
For example, an individual fixated at an earlier development stage might cry or sulk upon hearing unpleasant news. According to Freud, behaviors associated with regression can vary greatly depending on the stage at which a person is fixated. For example, an individual fixated at the oral stage might be eating or smoking excessively or might become verbally aggressive. A fixation at the anal stage might result in excessive tidiness or
So in the oral state, when he is not getting mother feed around there, so when he becomes a person on the adult around there, he will start chewing tobacco, he will start smoking. That is the fixation happens around there. Similarly, a person at anal stage, if he is no mother ने potty बैठा दिया and he is अपना कहते someone is बैठे 1 घंटा ही नहीं तो मदर तक हम होकर उसको तो चले भाग. तो क्या होता है? He is a when he grows up, he become a very stingy person. On the country, a child there, body bata and state within here, okay, I'm very happy. So he is going to. So all personality are depending upon how he has developed in the oral, what you got that development stage. That is creates a problem to him. Okay. Next is called reaction formation.
Reaction formation reduces anxiety by taking up the opposite feeling, impulse, or behavior. An example of reaction formation would be treating someone you strongly dislike in an excessively friendly manner in order to hide your true feelings.
So rather than किसी दुश्मनी है और उसे दोस्ती बना रहे हो, उसे दोस्ती कर रहे हो. Correct? आगे चलो.
Why do people behave this way? According to Freud, they are using reaction formation as a defense mechanism to hide their true feelings by behaving in the exact opposite.
So you are always behaving in opposite direction. Okay. Now there are the 10 defense mechanisms which was given by Freud earlier. Now there's another 10 has been added up. Okay. Read out this acting out.
Acting out, coping with stress by engaging in actions rather than acknowledging and being certain feelings. For example, instead of telling someone that you are angry with them, you might yell at them or throw something against the wall.
So they acting out. Acting means you start taking action. You are taking action, isn't it? Rather than feeling. Now feeling has converted into action. That equal acting out. Correct?
Yes.
Next is aim inhibition.
Aim inhibition, accepting a more modified form of original goal An example of this would be becoming a high school basketball coach rather than a professional athlete.
So what aim you say, accept a modifier. You want to become an IAS officer. Suddenly you can let me become PCS. Let me become PCS officer. So that is your modified your aim inhibition. Your means your aim has been lowered. Aim has been lowered, isn't it? Okay, chalo. And you'll always defend that problem. When you say no, I have become what PCS officer. Very nice. Nothing wrong. Okay, आगे चलो. Altruism.
Altruism, satisfying internal needs through helping others. For example, someone recovering from substance use might volunteer to help others in recovery as a way to deal with drug craving.
So suppose if you are in dearth, there is something which is missing on. You would like to know. So suppose you were never loved by anyone, but now you start loving every child. Okay, khana de diya sabko. You start looking after the children. You got the children. So you are acting that you call altruism. Altruism. You are looking after the people, isn't it? That habit. That's against with science. Again, why do people go for altruism? Is it just to show? Yes, just to show to others. If the true feeling is that there's a different way of doing this thing, but altruism is a positive thing rather than negative thing in any case. Okay, avoidance.
Avoidance, refusing to deal with or encounter unpleasant objects or situations. For example, rather than discuss a problem with someone, you might simply start avoiding them altogether so you don't have to deal with the issue.
So now, rather than meeting a person around there, you try avoiding or talking totally. That's the end of avoidance. So you don't want to face the problem. You don't want to face the problem. You want to avoid. You want to avoid it. Okay. Compensation.
Compensation, overachieving in one area to compensate for failures in another. For example, someone who feels insecure academically might compensate by excelling in athletics.
So you're compensating your failure in something to somewhere else. Somewhere to you are compensating, isn't it? Compensation. That's called compensation. Okay. Dissociation.
Becoming separated or removed from your experience when dealing with something stressful. For example, you might mentally and emotionally disengage yourself from the situation.
Now, suppose now, remember this, your home, when you go to office, can I carry my home to office? There may be so many problems, no, in my home. But if I carry my home to office, what will happen? My performance office will go down. Reverse is also true. Something may have happened in my office. I should not carry it back to home. That is called dissociate. That's a technique which every professional will have to learn. Will have to learn. Because now, especially when you go to services, so many things happen. No? You may have killed an enemy. You can't really talking about it. That's a sad instance, isn't it? As a human, we don't want to kill people. But that has happened. That has happened. That's why part of my duty. So I have to dissociate. That act has finished. I have to dissociate. It was part of duty. I become a normal person. Is it or not? That's a dissociation. Okay, fantasy.
Avoiding reality by retreating to a safe place within your mind. When something in your life is causing anxiety, you might retreat to your inner world where the cause of the stress cannot harm.
So you might retreat to an inner world where the cause of stress cannot harm you. Now you sapna dekhna. Fantasy is sapna dekhna. You start dreaming. That's the fantasy. Okay. Next is humor.
Pointing out the funny or ironic aspects of the situation. An example of this might be cracking a joke in a stressful or traumatic situation.
So in a stressful situation, you would like to crack some that reduces the tension in any case, isn't it? Okay, next is passive aggression.
Indirectly expressing anger instead of telling someone that you are upset. For example, you might give them silent treatment.
So then when you get angry, your mother sometimes she doesn't tell you anything. She's quiet only. माँ गुस्सा है क्या नहीं? गुस्सा होती है, कुछ नहीं बोलेगी तुम्हें. बोलती है क्या नहीं बोलती है? सीधा अच्छा आ गई बस आप ये समझ गया तो कुछ नहीं मम्मी आज तो मैं यहाँ पर ऑफिस में जाता है और you start giving all sorts of excuses to her. Correct? So that is called passive aggression. It's undoing.
Trying to make up for what you feel are inappropriate thoughts. feelings or behaviors. For example, if you hurt someone's feeling, you might offer to do something nice for them to assure your
So yeah,
anxiety or guilt.
again, it's something like compensating. It's something that compensating. You are trying to you are covering up your own weaknesses. Now you are covering up your own action. You are covering your own action by any mistake. If I have harmed you, if I have say I have done something wrong to you, I would like to compensate that harm that I given by doing something extra, something extra. That is called undoing. That is called undoing. So they are the 20th, but now there's a they call hierarchy. They call reduke. While defense are often thought as negative, we all need them temporarily ease stress and protect self-esteem during critical times, allowing us to focus on what is necessary. Now, in TAT, what is happening? Every assessor is expected, though it never happens. Mind you, I'm telling you, a professional assessor is supposed to find out from each story what is your need, what is your need, what is the type of press that is creating that, and then he will also like to find out what is the defense mechanism that he used from them. These three are direct indicator of your personality. These three are direct indicator of personality. But pardon my saying that hardly any person does it. Because in SSB, we are used to telling pass or fail. Pass or fail. But why I'm telling you, because I'm not in SSB, I'm trying to be a trainer. I'm trying to tell you, I have to change your psyche. And the psyche can only be changed if you understand these things are of importance. Is it or not? So I must say every story, even if you act, say what a story every day that I'm talking to someone, and what I'm doing in it is a story only. Throughout my morning to evening, what I'm doing, I'm telling a story only. When you go to a boss, tell him, okay, this is the project is I have given it, this is the extra, this is the problem, and you try and give you a story, this is what has happened, succeeded or not succeeded. Correct? If you're not succeed, that type of defense mechanism, you are argument that we are giving it, that will show one of these things. What was the need? What prevented you from achieving it? And what was the defense mechanism you are doing for a success or not success out there? So that is what we'll come back to. You come back home, you tell him, माँ आज तो मैं पहले आ जाती लेकिन अब आज रास्ते में कुछ ये हो गया and also to excuse you are trying to give it again a story. So what I'm trying to do it throughout my life, I'm giving one story after story, is it or not? But no one has told me how to tell a story. My problem is only this. Has anyone told you to what is story? No. No one tells me a story. What do I do? So I must really learn to tell a story. Must learn to tell a story. Okay? That is the first thing. Next is what? Now, how do you cope up? The problem is there's a healthy mechanism and unhealthy mechanism. There is called hierarchy of defense mechanism, they call it. We'll talk sometime later on. But this is sufficient to understand that if you want to appear in SSB, all three assessors are expected to find out what is your need, what is press that prevents you from achieving your aim, and what is the type of defense mechanism you are using it. And based upon these three only, your qualities emerge, that 15 qualities that we talk about it, and then he will take out on a scale of 1 to 10. 1 to 10. 1 being the highest and 10 being the worst performer. 1 is the highest, and in SSB, best of the people have got 5. That is there in between. Best of the people. And those people who pass, they fall between 6 and 7. 5, 6, and 7. 5 is very rare. 5 is very rare. 6 and 7, see, it means you are below the top one. So we are looking around for average officer. Average person who after training will become an average officer. We don't want extraordinary people around there. Though we expect everyone to be extraordinary in any case. Any question, any doubt? I thought this was one of the important things we thought really important. So